During the day, North Hollow looks like any other small town. School buses run on time. Shops open their shutters. Neighbors meet each other with a smile. Nothing feels wrong. But that's only true until the sun goes down. My name is Ryan Cole. I've been a police officer in North Hollow for the last 10 years. And there's something everyone here knows, but no one officially admits. After dark, the rules of North Hollow change. I learned that on my very first night shift. During handover, my senior officer looked at me for a long moment and said, "Ryan, after sunset, only do what you're told. Don't try to be a hero." I thought he was exaggerating. I was wrong. There's an old part of town we call Lower Streets. During the day, it's quiet but normal. Old houses, narrow roads, closed businesses. At night, patrols are not allowed there. No written reason, no explanation, just a rule. One night, at 1:36 a.m., a call came in. Woman screaming, Lower Streets. The dispatcher's voice sounded uneasy. I said, "Send backup." There was a pause. Then she replied, "No backup available, you know the rule." I stopped my car. If we don't go when someone is screaming, then what are we even here for? I drove toward Lower Streets. The streetlights there don't work properly. Windows stay dark, and the silence feels heavy, like it's pressing down on you. My radio crackled. "Officer Cole, turn around." It was my supervisor. I said, "Someone needs help." He replied quietly, "After dark, the ones who scream aren't human." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Then I saw it. A figure standing in the middle of the road, perfectly still, head lowered. I turned on my flashlight. The figure raised its head. It had a face, but no eyes. Just darkness where they should have been. It took one step toward me. At the same moment, my radio screamed, "Turn around, now." I backed away, slammed my car door, and started the engine. In the rearview mirror, I saw it smiling. The next morning, I was called into the station. My supervisor looked exhausted. "You're alive," he said. "That's because you broke the rule, but not completely." I asked him what that thing was. He took a deep breath. "North Hollow is old," he said. "Some things here sleep during the day. At night, the town belongs to them." He handed me a list. Night rules. No entry into Lower Streets after dark. Never respond to screams at night. If you see a face too clearly in the dark, look away. And most important, never challenge the town after sunset. Every year, an officer ignores the rules. They don't always die. Sometimes they transfer, sometimes they quit, sometimes they just disappear. I'm still stationed in North Hollow, and every evening when the sun goes down, I slow my patrol car, lower the radio volume, and follow the rules exactly as they're written. Because here, darkness isn't just the absence of light. In North Hollow, darkness is in charge. And if you follow the wrong rules after nightfall, you don't come back for the morning shift. The rules no one explains. After that night in Lower Streets, I couldn't stop thinking about the rules. Not the ones written on paper, the ones no one ever explained. Every officer in North Hollow followed them automatically, like muscle memory, like survival instinct. But no one ever sat down and said why. I started noticing how the town behaved after dark. At exactly sunset, people disappeared indoors, curtains closed, porch lights turned off. Even the bars shut early. By 9 p.m., the streets were empty, not quiet, avoided. During my patrols, I began seeing small things that didn't make sense. A stoplight changing when no cars were present. A shadow crossing an alley with no body attached to it. Windows lighting up briefly at midnight, then going dark again. Always at the same times. As if North Hollow followed a schedule no one had written down. I asked another officer about it, Tom Alvarez, a veteran with 20 years on the force. He stared at me for a long moment before answering. "You still think the rules are about safety," he said. "Aren't they?" I asked. He shook his head slowly. "They're about permission." That was the first time anyone used that word. Permission for what? Tom didn't answer. A week later, a call came in just before midnight. Noise complaint, old residential block near the edge of town. Technically harmless, but the address was close to Lower Streets. Dispatch hesitated before assigning it. Then my name came up. "Ryan, you don't have to respond," Tom said quietly. "It's before midnight," I replied. He didn't argue. That should have been my warning. When I arrived, the house looked abandoned, paint peeling, Front door slightly open, lights on inside. I stepped onto the porch and felt it immediately, that pressure again, like the air was waiting for me to make a mistake. Inside, the radio crackled. "Officer Cole," a voice said softly, "you shouldn't be here." Not dispatch, not any officer I knew. The voice sounded calm, almost kind. I backed away from the door. The lights inside went out. At the exact moment my watch ticked over to 12 a.m., the house went completely silent. I didn't investigate further. I didn't knock. I left. Back at the station, no one asked about the call. No report was required. That's when I realized something unsettling. North Hollow didn't punish officers for breaking rules. It tested them. The rules weren't enforced by the department. They were enforced by the town. That night, I reviewed old case files. Disappearances. Unexplained resignations. Officers transferred suddenly without cause. Every case involved someone who questioned the rules too closely, someone who stayed out too late, someone who thought daylight logic applied to nighttime North Hollow. I found a pattern. Every officer who vanished had done the same thing beforehand. They tried to fix something after dark, a noise complaint, a scream, a light where there shouldn't be one. They assumed the town needed policing. They were wrong. North Hollow doesn't need control. It demands obedience. At 2:14 a.m. while I was still reading, the station lights flickered. The radio turned on by itself. No call sign, no static, just a whisper. "You're learning." I stood up immediately. The radio went silent. Tom looked at me from across the room. "You heard it too, didn't you?" he asked. I nodded. He sighed. "That's how it starts," he said. "First, it warns you. Then it watches. Then it waits for you to forget one rule." "What happens then?" I asked. Tom didn't answer. He just looked toward the window, out at the darkened town. That night I didn't sleep, because I finally understood something critical. North Hollow isn't dangerous all the time. It's only dangerous when someone believes the rules exist to protect people. They don't. They exist to protect the balance. And anyone who tries to change that balance after dark becomes part of it. When civilians break the night rules. The night the civilians broke the rules was the night I realized the police weren't here to protect people. We were here to contain the damage. It happened on a Thursday. Cold, clear, too quiet. At 11:52 p.m., dispatch received a 911 call from a woman named Lena Harris. Local resident, lived near the edge of lower streets. She was crying. "There's someone outside my house," she said. "They keep knocking, but they won't speak." Dispatch asked the standard questions. Description, location, immediate danger. Then the dispatcher froze, because the knocking could be heard through the phone. Slow, deliberate, not frantic. I leaned toward the console. "Send a unit," I said. The room went silent. Tom shook his head. "Not after midnight," he said quietly. I looked at the clock. 11:59 p.m. "We still have 1 minute," I said. Dispatch hesitated. Then Lena screamed. The knocking stopped. The line went dead. At 12 a.m., the system automatically marked the call as unresolved. No follow-up required. I stood up. "I'm going," I said. Tom grabbed my arm. "If you go now, you're not responding to a call," he said. "You're volunteering." I pulled free. The drive to Lena's house felt wrong. Not dark, empty. Every house I passed was silent. No lights, no movement. When I arrived, her porch light was on. The front door was wide open. Inside, the house looked untouched. No signs of struggle, no broken furniture, just silence. Then I noticed something strange. All the clocks in the house were stopped. Every single one, frozen at 11:59. Upstairs, I found Lena's phone on the bed. Screen cracked, still connected to the emergency line. But Lena was gone. No foe. Footprints outside. No blood. Just one thing out of place. On the inside of the front door, carved into the wood, were words written with something sharp. She answered. I reported everything. The response from the department was immediate. The house was sealed. The case classified as a voluntary disappearance. No press release, no investigation. I confronted the captain. She called for help, I said. We let her disappear. The captain didn't deny it. She broke the rules, he said flatly. And so did you. That's when he finally explained. North Hollow has two sets of rules: day rules for humans, night rules for everything else. Civilians aren't told the night rules. They're expected to learn them. And if they don't, they're removed. Removed where? I asked. He didn't answer. After Lena, the town felt different. Not angrier, satisfied. The nights became quieter. No screams, no knocks, no calls. That scared me more than anything. Because silence meant compliance. I started noticing things about the houses where people vanished. The lights would still turn on sometimes. The TVs would flicker at night, as if someone was still inside, watching, waiting. Tom told me something I'll never forget. The town doesn't like panic, he said. It likes acceptance. That's why the knocking wasn't violent. That's why the voices were calm. They weren't breaking in. They were being let in. That's when I realized the most terrifying truth yet. North Hollow doesn't take people by force. It waits for them to invite it. And once someone does, the police don't stop it. We document it, because stopping it would mean breaking the oldest rule of all: never interfere with the town after dark. The night an officer tried to save someone. After Lena Harris disappeared, North Hollow didn't mourn. It adjusted. Her house stayed locked, her name faded from conversation. Her street grew quieter than the rest. Like the town had swallowed something and moved on. That was the night I stopped pretending this was just policy. This was ritual. 2 weeks later, a new call came in. 11:41 p.m., male caller, teenager. His voice was shaking. My dad went outside. He said he heard someone calling his name. The address made my stomach drop. Same block as Lena's house. Dispatch froze again. Tom looked at me. No, he said immediately. He's a kid, I replied. His father might still be alive. Tom lowered his voice. Ryan, after dark, the town decides who stays. The kid came back on the line, sobbing. I can see him, he said. He's standing in the street. He's not moving. I stood up. I'm going, I said. This time no one tried to stop me. They just looked away. The drive felt different than before, heavier. The air pressed in on the car like fog without moisture. When I reached the block, I understood why it was avoided. The houses were there, but they didn't feel present, like stage props after the actors leave. In the middle of the road stood a man, barefoot, head tilted slightly upward. I recognized him from old reports. David Harris, Lena's husband. He was supposed to be gone. I stepped out of the car. Sir, I called. Can you hear me? He didn't respond. The streetlights flickered, and then the houses shifted, not physically, perceptually. Like my brain couldn't agree on where edges were. David's mouth opened, but the voice that came out wasn't his. Rules are different now, it said. My radio screamed with static. I moved toward him. Every instinct told me not to, but the kid was still on the phone, still watching, still waiting for his father to come back. I grabbed David's arm. His skin was cold, not like night air, like stone. He turned his head toward me. His eyes were open, but empty. Behind me, something else moved. I didn't look. I already knew. That's when the captain's voice came through my radio. Cole, he said quietly. Step away. I can get him inside, I said. He's still here. No, the captain replied. He's already been counted. I felt something brush past my shoulder. Not touching, measuring. David smiled, and then he crumbled, not fell, collapsed inward, like dust pulled down by gravity. Gone. The street went still, too still. The radio went dead. I stood alone in the road, shaking. At dawn, that entire block was erased from city records. No addresses, no utilities, no zoning. On paper, it never existed. The kid was relocated, told his father moved away. And I was written up, officially, for endangering myself, unofficially, for almost breaking the town's oldest rule. Tom said it best afterward. You tried to save someone after dark, he said. That's the one thing North Hollow doesn't forgive. Since that night, something has changed. The rules haven't become stricter. They've become closer. The town doesn't just react anymore. It anticipates. And I can feel it watching me now, waiting to see if I'll try again. Because North Hollow doesn't fear rebellion. It just waits for someone to believe they're stronger than the rules, what the town does with the people it takes. After the night David Harris vanished into dust, I stopped believing North Hollow was just hiding something. It was using something, and it was using people. From that point on, I paid attention to what happened after disappearances, not the night of, the mornings. Whenever someone vanished, the town didn't feel emptier. It felt full. Streetlights glowed brighter, road cracks vanished overnight, buildings looked cleaner, newer, as if the town had been repaired. That's when I noticed something no one talked about. Every disappearance was followed by an improvement. A broken water line fixed itself. A condemned building stopped decaying. A power outage never returned. North Hollow wasn't cursed, it was being maintained, and the cost was human. I confronted Tom again. "How long has this been happening?" I asked. He didn't answer at first. Then he said, "Longer than the police department." He took me to the records room, the one below the station that no one ever used. No digital files. Paper only. Old enough to smell like damp earth. There were maps, North Hollow from decades ago, then centuries, each version slightly different. But always the same pattern. When the town expanded, people disappeared. When it shrank, it fed. Tom showed me something worse. A list titled Night Contributions, names, dates, a single word beside each. Accepted. They volunteered. I asked. Some did, Tom said. Some answered knocks. Some followed voices. Some just stayed outside too long. And the police? I asked. He met my eyes. We make sure it stays quiet. That's when I understood the real role of the department. We weren't law enforcement. We were caretakers. That night North Hollow tested me again. I was driving near the sealed block when my headlights flickered. A figure stood at the intersection. Not threatening, not moving, just waiting. I stopped the car, against every instinct. The figure looked like a woman. No face details, just a silhouette. She spoke, not out loud, inside my head. "You tried to save someone." "I did," I whispered. "That's not your role." "What is?" I asked. The streetlights brightened. The town hummed, "To decide who belongs." My radio crackled. It was the captain. "Cole," he said calmly, "drive away, for the first time." I didn't. "I won't let you take anyone else," I said. The silhouette. He stepped closer. And suddenly I understood. The town doesn't choose randomly. It selects people who resist, people who question, people who don't accept silence. The town feeds on defiance. That's why it watches officers so closely. That's why the rules exist. The silhouette raised an arm. The air thickened. I felt pressure behind my eyes. Memories blurred. Then, a car horn, headlights. Another officer drove past. The figure vanished. The pressure lifted. I sat there shaking. I knew then what dawn really meant. It wasn't safety. It was reset. The town rested during the day, repaired itself, prepared for night. Since then, I've followed the rules perfectly, not because I agree with them, because I'm being watched. And I know this now. North Hollow doesn't need everyone to comply. It just needs a few people to resist. Because resistance tastes better. Why some officers are afraid of dawn. People think dawn is safety. In North Hollow, dawn is judgment. Night is when the town feeds. Day is when it counts. I learned that from the officers who stopped sleeping. Not because of nightmares, because sleep made them vulnerable. Officer Mason Reed was one of them. Veteran, quiet, never broke the rules. One morning, just after sunrise, I found him sitting in his patrol car behind the station, engine off, radio unplugged, eyes wide open. He hadn't gone home. "You okay?" I asked. He didn't look at me. "It checked me last night," he said. "What do you mean?" I asked. Mason finally turned. His eyes were red, not from crying, but from not blinking. "I didn't do anything wrong," he said. "I followed every rule, but it still came." He told me that just before dawn, while he was parked and waiting for his shift to end, the street around him changed. Not visibly, conceptually, like the town leaned inward. Then a voice, not a sound, not words, an understanding, settled into his head. "Are you still useful?" That was the question. Not threatening, not angry, evaluating. I answered. Mason said, "I told it I still belonged." "What happened?" I asked. He shook his head. It didn't respond. It just noted it. 2 days later, Mason was gone. No call, no incident, no record of his resignation. His locker was empty, like he'd never existed. That's when I realized something terrifying. The town wasn't just feeding on civilians anymore. It was auditing its caretakers, the police, the ones who knew the rules, the ones who had served long enough to become familiar. Dawn wasn't relief, it was review. I started keeping my own notes. Off the system, patterns emerged. Officers who stayed too long, officers who stopped questioning, officers who fully accepted the rules. They disappeared quietly. The town didn't need obedience forever. It needed renewal, new caretakers, new resistance, new balance. That's why I was still alive. I resisted, but not enough. I questioned, but still followed orders. I was interesting. That night, the captain finally told me the truth. "You think the town is old?" he said. "It's older than that." He showed me a map. North Hollow wasn't built. It condensed around something that needed structure to survive. Streets gave it shape. Buildings gave it memory. People gave it continuity. And the disappearances, I asked? "They're not deaths," he said. "They're conversions." Into what? He looked at me. Into the town. That night I didn't patrol. I stayed in the station, lights on, noise playing, refusing silence. At 5:12 a.m., the power flickered, the walls vibrated, and I felt it again. That inward pressure, the same presence Mason described. "You're tired," it conveyed. "You've done enough." I stood up. "No," I said aloud. "I'm not finished." The pressure increased. Not pain. Weight. Like gravity had shifted. Then the sun rose. The feeling vanished instantly. The town returned to normal. Birds chirped, cars passed. The captain entered the room and looked at me carefully. "It noticed you," he said. "What happens now?" I asked. He hesitated. "Now," he said, "it decides whether to keep you or finish you." That's when I knew. The rules weren't about survival. They were about postponement. And I was running out of time. The last rule North Hollow never tells you. The night North Hollow finally chose me, it didn't feel dramatic. There were no screams, no shadows crawling out of alleys, no sudden darkness. That's how I knew it was real. I was finishing my shift when the captain stopped me at the door. "You don't go home tonight," he said. It wasn't a suggestion, it was procedure. He handed me a single envelope. No department seal, no return address. Inside was one sentence, typed neatly on white paper: "Stay where you are when the town asks." I looked up. The captain wouldn't meet my eyes. That was the moment I understood the final rule. North Hollow doesn't chase you. It doesn't trap you. It waits until leaving feels like disobedience. At 11:58 p.m. the station went quiet. Not empty. Focused. The radios didn't turn off. They listened. At 12 a.m. the lights dimmed. Not flickered. Dimmed. Like the town was lowering its voice. Then I felt it, that inward pull. Not fear, expectation. The same presence I'd sensed before. But closer now. "You understand the rules," it conveyed. "That makes you valuable." "I won't help you anymore," I said. There was no reply. Instead, the walls of the station felt thicker, like they'd always been part of something larger. "You already have," the presence answered. "Every time you followed them." That's when I realized the cruelest truth of all. The town doesn't punish rebellion. It punishes departure. Because leaving means breaking continuity, breaking memory, breaking the shape it needs to exist. At 12:07 a.m., the door behind me unlocked by itself. The street outside looked normal, too normal. Lights on, roads clear, silent. The town wasn't threatening me. It was offering me a choice. Stay and become permanent, or leave and be unfinished. I thought of Mason, of Lena, of David Harris turning to dust. They didn't leave. They were absorbed. I stepped outside. The air felt heavy. Not hostile, curious. As I walked down the street, I noticed something terrifying. The buildings looked newer, cleaner, like the town had already accounted for me. I reached the edge of North Hollow. The sign stood there, just as always. "Welcome to North Hollow." I crossed it. Nothing happened. No pain, no pull. I kept walking. That's when the pressure hit. Not behind me, inside me. Memories blurred. Street names faded. Faces softened. The town wasn't dragging me back. It was letting go, and letting go meant erasing. I ran, not away, forward, toward headlights, noise, anything real. When I finally collapsed on the roadside, dawn was breaking. I woke up hours later in a hospital miles away. They asked me my name. I hesitated. It took me a moment to remember. North Hollow never came looking for me. It didn't need to. I carry it now, in gaps in my memory, in streets that feel familiar when they shouldn't, in the urge to obey rules that were never written. That's the final truth. North Hollow doesn't need to keep everyone. It only needs to keep the idea of itself alive. And it does that by letting some of us go broken, incomplete. So if you ever pass through a town that feels too orderly at night, where people follow rules no one explains, where silence feels intentional, don't stay after dark. And if someone tells you, just follow the rules and you'll be fine, understand this: the rules aren't there to protect you. They're there to protect the town. And once it decides you belong to it, leaving will cost you more than staying ever did. End.